morning. It's time for the 11 o'clock update on Hurricane Melissa. We were getting some technical stuff squared away here at 13 News Now in the studios, and we are good to go. So, with all that being said, I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. It is good to be with you on this Monday. It is October 27th, and we're winding down the month of October. We've got one more month of hurricane season, of course, coming up through November, and we have our hands full right now with Melissa. So we're going to talk about it. We got the 11 o'clock update in, and this is still a potentially absolutely devastating situation for Jamaica, and then eventually eastern Cuba into the Turks and Caicos or the Bahamas, southern Bahamas, potentially after that, maybe even Bermuda down the line. So we're going to get into all of this. Let's go ahead and take a look right now at the satellite and the radar images. These are color enhanced, so you can really make out some of the deep convection that's going on. And we've seen a lot of storminess out away from this system. You can see some of these areas out here, some deep convection earlier, some heavy flare-ups out in this area. And of course, we've already had issues with this system throwing some moisture up towards Hispaniola, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. But right now, our real focus is on Jamaica and how close this is getting and where it is forecast to go. Now, Melissa is the 13th named system of the Atlantic hurricane season. Of those 13 named storms, there have been 5 hurricanes, and of the 5 hurricanes, 4 of them have been major hurricanes. Aaron, Gabrielle, Umberto, and now Melissa, all Category 4 or 5. Aaron, Umberto, and Melissa, all Cat 5 storms, and Imelda was a Cat 2. I was talking with our chief meteorologist, Tim Panday, just a little earlier this morning. We were just talking about how volatile this season has been in terms of once these storms have kicked up, there's been so much heat energy with the sea surface temperatures, so much fuel for these things to work with, that we've seen these things really flare up, and that has been a big deal with the rapid intensification. We saw that with Melissa yesterday and early this morning. So what we're going to have with this system, a potential worst hit to Jamaica on record. Previously, the most powerful system to impact Jamaica was Hurricane Gilbert. That took place September 12th in 1988, made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane, about 100,000 homes damaged, displacing 500,000 Jamaicans. There were 49 deaths. There were long-term outages, and the banana crop was completely destroyed. You can see this country, this island here, Jamaica, very much in the crosshairs, as you will see, of Melissa as a Category 5 hurricane. If it does make landfall as a Category 5, that'll be the first time on known record that this has happened. They've had a bunch come close within 60 miles of the coast. They've had 8, I think, Cat 4 and Cat 5 systems come by. But as far as a landfalling Cat 5, as far as records show, hasn't happened. Now, as we take a look at our tropical alerts right now, we do have a hurricane warning for Jamaica. You see that, and for eastern Cuba as well. Hurricane watches are out for the Turks and Caicos and then the southern Bahamas there. You could see Nassau in the Bahamas not under that hurricane watch. They should be okay, being a little farther to the west. And then you can see the Florida Keys also in fine shape. But Jamaica to eastern Cuba and the Turks, Caicos, and southern Bahamas all under these alerts. And you'll notice the area outlined in orange. Tropical storm warnings are out for Haiti. And again, Hispaniola has already dealt with some fatalities associated with the tremendous rain out well ahead of this system. Now, as we take a look at the satellite radar, or the satellite images here, you'll notice that it has been drifting to the west and currently is moving west at about 3 miles per hour. So again, this has been a slow-moving creeper of a storm. Fortunately, it's remained about 100 miles to the south of the Jamaican coastline, and that has kept the worst of this, the strongest winds and the heaviest rain associated with the core of this storm south of Jamaica. But this slow-moving system is forecast to turn back to the north. And as we take an even closer look here, you'll notice just within the last few frames, it looks like maybe it's starting to show some signs that it's turning back to the north. You have to look really closely here, but we'll zoom in and I'm going to show you this. I'll loop this again and you can see what I'm talking about. Let me draw a line on this. Maybe that'll make it a little bit easier to see here. Okay, as we take a look, I'll put a line and we'll stop it here. Let's take you back a few hours. Okay, and I'm going to put a line right here across the northern part of the system, right there. Oh, I don't like that arrow. Let's get rid of that arrowhead. So as we do this, again, we've got the top edge right here. So let me get rid of this. Take the arrowhead off. Okay, and here's a line. So we'll draw a line right. Gotta love this. All right, here we go. Let's try this again. There's a line. Okay, that's what I was trying to grab. So that was 3 hours ago. You'll notice as we went over the last, it's about an hour and a half or so ago. Again, I'll do that same line right there. Okay, and then as we come just within the last few frames, can you see it's maybe just to the north of that? Just showing the earliest signs that maybe that's coming back up. One more time, I'll take you back. You can see how it comes down and then starts to maybe come back up just a little bit. All right, so we're nitpicking here, but this may be some of the first signs that it is actually making that turn to the north. So here's where we are now, okay, right there, and going back a little bit, you can see maybe slightly dipping and maybe coming back up. All right, we'll get back into the forecast on this thing. Right now, the center of that system, the diameter on that eye is about 15 miles. It's still technically, with the 11 o'clock update, drifting west, slow mover, 3 miles per hour. Here are some of the communities that are going to have to pay super close attention to this. Bull Savannah, Black River, these communities right here along the southwestern coast. You can see this whole shoreline of Jamaica here to the southwest would be very open to storm surge, to just tremendous wave activity, a lot of erosion there. Cambridge, Albertown, Falmouth, Discovery Bay, Montego Bay, all of these areas, obviously all of Jamaica, bracing for this and concerned with this. But those communities right there on the southwest side, Bull Savannah and Black River, two areas that really need to pay very close attention. We'll take a look at this, and again, the wider view, you can see how this thing is continuing to rip along as it drifts to the east. Now I want to get into the actual 11 o'clock update, and again, you can see right now the dimensions of this eye. Basically, from west to east, that distance about 14 miles, from north to south, about 15, maybe 16 miles or so. That's how big this thing is, and it is going to move towards Jamaica here as an anticipated turn to the north and then eventually to the northeast. Right now, the maximum winds are up. This is a change from the 8 o'clock update. From 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, it has gone from 160 mile per hour maximum sustained winds to winds of 165. The gusts now to 200 miles per hour. An incredibly powerful storm. Technically, the center about 145 miles southwest of Kingston, Jamaica. Pressure is at 908 millibars, down so much. We were looking over the late part of last week when I was doing these updates last Friday morning. It was around 1,003 or so, 1,002, 1,003 millibars. It has dropped down to 908, so this thing has really ramped up. And for Guantanamo Bay, it's about 330 miles to the southwest of Guantanamo. So you've got Guantanamo and Kingston all watching this again. Montego Bay, again, must watch this as that anticipated turn back to the north, and we may be seeing some of the earliest signs that maybe it's slowing a little bit, maybe that center, that northern part of the eye, starting to drift just a little bit north of due west. We'll see. At the 11 o'clock update, official movement still west at 3, but it may be showing some signs here within the last half hour to 45 minutes that maybe, just maybe, it's starting to show some north of due west progression. At 8 a.m. Tuesday, and we can take a little closer look here, you can see potentially what we're dealing with, a landfall as a Category 5 hurricane. Absolutely devastating to Jamaica to have a hit like that. So we need to watch this, and we will continue to watch this very, very carefully. I'll show you where it's going after that. As we move it along, it is going to continue off to the northeast, exiting back out, weakening somewhat, Category 3, likely by Tuesday evening between Jamaica and Cuba, and then crossing Cuba, likely impacting areas not far from Santiago de Cuba, moving across Cuba, and then back over to the Turks Caicos and the southern Bahamas. Those islands will need to pay close attention. At this point, the official hurricane track takes it just to the west, almost another direct hit on Bermuda as a Cat 2 or Cat 1 hurricane as it passes. So this thing, again, a dangerous situation, not only for Jamaica, devastating to Jamaica potentially, but when we consider what this thing could do and what it could mean for Bermuda, for the Bahamas, so some of these tiny islands here, they are going to have to prepare as well. And again, it's Jamaica that we are most concerned with right now as a Cat 5 coming in across Jamaica. So we'll continue to monitor all of this. All right, as we take a look at the models here, this is a look at a number of the different tropical models, and you can see how they are all very much in agreement on that gradual turn to the north and then back to the northeast. And almost all of them bring it directly over Cuba. A few of the westernmost models may be just on the edge, but that would still leave places all across the western half of Jamaica in that right front quadrant with a nearly direct hit right there. I would plan on Jamaica dealing with the landfall early tomorrow morning. That is the thinking with the 11 o'clock. After that, it crosses over Cuba. Now, this is a look at the ensembles, and the ensemble spaghetti plot, again, where we just change a few of the little variables. You can see overwhelmingly, most of the ensembles track it through the same area, western Jamaica. May swing it a little farther to the west, but then bring it back over Jamaica, back over eastern Cuba, across the Bahamas. Just a devastating blow here. So this is what we are most concerned with, and we need to be. Look at the wind radii here, and again, this is the hurricane force winds shaded in red, the tropical storm force winds, winds in excess of 39 miles per hour in yellow. So they've already been dealing with this over Jamaica, the tropical storm force winds. But let's back this up just a little bit, just to show you the timing on this. By, say, 3:30, 4 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow, we would be looking at those hurricane force winds reaching those areas that I was pointing out before in the southwest part of Jamaica. Then as we go past 5, 6, 7, you go towards 8 o'clock, 8:30, much of the central and western portions of Jamaica seeing those hurricane force winds extending back towards Montego Bay and then coming off the north central part of Jamaica. Now, during the afternoon, if this wind field forecast is correct, by late afternoon, say 5 o'clock or so, most of the hurricane force winds should be pulling north of the island. The tropical storm force winds continuing through the evening, but eventually winding down shortly after midnight, and then really moving up towards Cuba and areas off to the northeast of that. So it is really a potentially very dangerous situation, obviously, and we'll talk some more about some of the direct threats. Now, as we take a look at the model comparisons, this is the Euro and the GFS. The Euro is colored in red, the GFS in yellow. Both the models bring it across the western part of Jamaica, run it towards Cuba, then through the southern Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos, kind of on the outskirts. Notice how close it comes here to Bermuda as well. So here's Bermuda right here, and you see there's the GFS handling of this system, there's the Euro, and both of those, if you keep an eye to right there's Bermuda, and I'll shuttle this back a little bit, you can see both of them very, very close to Bermuda, which is located right in between the two. So this, again, a devastating shot to Jamaica, and the concern is very real that these folks down there are going to have a lot of significant disruptions. Now, what are we talking about? You know, when we have a system like this coming through, you have to worry about a number of things. First of all, the heavy rain and the winds. You know, we could talk about the tidal surge into the southwestern part of the island is going to be incredible with this. You get up into the higher elevations, and some of one of my coworkers has extended family that lived down in Jamaica. Their family from that area. He had his sister Mary, a gentleman that's Jamaican, and his whole family down there, and they were reaching out to say, hey, are you prepared? Do you know what's going on with this? And they said, well, we live higher. So they were really only focused on the flood threat with the storm surge with this major hurricane. But here's the problem. You're going to have so much rainfall with this. Landslides, mudslides, flooding are going to be a big issue from the heavy amounts of rain. Some areas could see 1 or 2 feet of rain, maybe more, depending on how quickly this comes through. The one upside with this forecast track is that it does move it through and past Jamaica during the day tomorrow. Previously, with some of the forecast guidance we were looking at, they had it just kind of slowly creeping around and almost wrapping around the west side of Jamaica. Tremendous amounts of rain and prolonged winds over the island. This is a little more progressive, bringing it in and then moving it through. So there's and I'll stress a little bit of good news there. I was looking back at the history with Jamaica and tropical systems, and specifically Gilbert back in 1988. There, the banana crop wiped out. So you've got all of these places. Not only do you have to worry about flooding and rainfall, flash flooding, and mudslides, landslides, the economic impact's tremendous, and the infrastructure of Jamaica will be challenged as well. I remember back in Puerto Rico, some of the devastating hits that area got, knocking out power for months to areas, parts of Puerto Rico. And we could have a similar situation here, prolonged power outages. Obviously, there's a significant concern of loss of life. So we're going to be watching all of this as we go over the next 24 to 36 hours. I strongly encourage you to stay tuned to 13 News Now. Our entire staff of meteorologists will be watching Melissa and tracking all of the developments. Every time we get new information coming in, we will be doing live updates on this hurricane and its potential impacts to Jamaica, eventually Cuba, and continuing to follow it up through the Bahamas and perhaps through the Turks and Caicos. So this is how it's moving along. Again, 11 a.m. update. Movement west at 3, maximum winds 165 miles per hour, gusting to 200. Anticipated landfall, southwest Jamaica, direct hit as a Category 5 hurricane moving along. You can see again crossing as a Cat 3, the straits there heading and impacting eastern Cuba as a major hurricane. Coming out slightly weakened on the other side, southern Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, hit, and then perhaps passing just to the west of Bermuda. We're going to continue to keep you updated on this. This is something that will be very, very impactful to that area, obviously Jamaica, but the entire Caribbean area down there, Haiti, back up into the Bahamas, Cuba. We'll be watching for all of these areas as well. All right, again, I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller from 13 News Now. Be sure and stay tuned to updates from us here on 13 News Now, 13 News Now Plus on YouTube. We'll work to keep you updated as we continue to track Melissa.